Welcome back to Living the American Dream, a year abroad. In today's episode we're going to dive into the natural wonders, weather extremes and wildlife encounters that I made during my exchange year in the US. From hurricanes and wildfires to mountain lions and lizards in the Grand Canyon. Nature in the US was and is as fascinating as it is unpredictable. Let's start with the weather. South Dakota's climate is something else. By late September, the air had already turned cold and extremely dry, a stark contrast to the rather wet and rainy weather that I was used to. And the winter? It wasn't any better. It was so dry and cold that my hands started to dry out, crack open, and bleed just by being outside. It's not something a bit of lotion can fix though, but it definitely wasn't something I expected on my student exchange. One time I was sitting in my hostess's car after school and waited like 2 to 3 hours for her to get done with school. By the time she got done, I was basically one block of ice. Speaking of ice, Rapid City had a big problem with black ice. Cars sliding over the road because you can't see that it's frozen, but also can't brake because it is frozen. Sounds like fun, right? Well, it is, until your car lands in another one or in the ditch next to the road. Luckily that didn't happen to me though, but sadly it did happen to one of my friends. Don't worry though, he's fine. Okay, now I bet this one is going to shock you if you're not from the US. Back in Germany we have bad weather. Sometimes it's a bit snowy or stormy or there's hail. Well, you know, one time I was driving around with my friends and there was a semi-truck laying on its side. It fell over because of the strong winds. And also, speaking of winds, did you know that South Dakota is located in the Great Plains? The best spot for tornadoes to appear? Well, I didn't either, and after I found out, I for sure wasn't too comfortable going outside when there were strong winds. This unsettling feeling when it comes to weather was also supported by the fact that it was hailing with ice coming from the sky that had like the size of tennis balls, cracking and even breaking windshields of cars. South Dakota weather sure is something else, but let me just say that it wasn't like this all the time. In fact, we only had those strong winds maybe around 4 to 5 times I was there, and hail like that only one time. It's not a normal occurrence and usually it doesn't affect you a lot, especially if you're prepared. Now, next up I want to talk about something very cool. Remember that time in early 2024 when you were able to see northern lights even in Germany? Well, I wanted to see them too, so I went outside with my friends at night and we hiked a little mountain in the middle of Rapid City called M Hill. Sadly our plan didn't go as expected since M Hill was basically surrounded by lights. So we all went back down the mountain and planned on what to do next, and the plan basically was just to go home. So we went to drop off my friend at his house, which was further up in the Black Hills, and then we saw them. Beautiful northern lights. Okay, enough talking about weather. I want to talk about one of the most amazing things about being in America, the wildlife. South Dakota itself is home to deer, coyotes, wolves, mountain lion, mountain goats, bald eagles, bison, and also black widows. Oh, yeah, and there's also rattlesnakes. Well, now you might think, why would anyone want to live there if there are so many dangerous animals? At least, as a German, that's kind of what I was thinking. Honestly, I was kind of intimidated. Who wants to live with black widows and rattlesnakes and the fear of meeting mountain lions, coyotes and wolves swinging outside? However, rest assured, it's not as bad as you might think. During my whole time that I spent there, I hadn't seen a single mountain lion, wolf, coyote or black widow outside of a zoo or something similar. I have seen rattlesnakes, but people know how to deal with them. They're not a big problem. I think the most annoying animals are deer. They're completely different to Germany, and they were extremely curious and were often just standing around our neighborhood or in our back and front yard. For example, when we made pumpkins for Halloween and put them outside our front door, after some days the deer started just eating them. Isn't that crazy? For me as a German, it definitely is. Another incident we have with wildlife was when a little bunny jumped down to my basement window and hurt itself. I didn't even realize at first, but then quickly got my host family to help and rescue the little guy. We got him out of there and brought him to a vet, and hopefully it's still hopping around somewhere in our neighborhood today. Okay, so to end this whole wildlife part, I want to tell you a story which is a bit stupid. Okay, imagine you're visiting South Dakota and go on a trip to see some bison. You find some, and now it's your decision from where you want to take photos from. I would probably take photos from inside my car or a safe distance. That's probably what most people would do, right? Well, there was this one lady who, during a trip to, I think it was the Badlands, was trying to get a photo or video of a bison. So she was like, let's go straight in front of the bison. That's a good idea, right? Well, I think you can all imagine what happened next. And let's just say the bison didn't appreciate the attention a lot. That was definitely a lesson learned, and you should always know to respect nature and give wild animals their space, no matter where you are. Now, let's move on to one of the highlights of my year. Arizona's Grand Canyon was just as dry as South Dakota, but when it came to temperatures, it was a completely 180 from the cold I had gotten so used to. With temperatures of over 32 degrees Celsius and burning sun, hiking down the canyon was challenging, but absolutely worth it. The wildlife there kept me on edge as well. Even though I didn't see any, scorpions, snakes and bats are common in this area, so we had to be careful. The only thing that we saw were a ton of different lizards and iguana, as well as donkeys carrying resources up and down the canyon. Next up is Minnesota, the so-called land of 10,000 lakes. It was definitely a stark contrast to the arid Grand Canyon. The weather there was humid and very pleasant for me. It was perfect for outdoor activities like fishing, tubing, water skiing, playing tennis, or just casually driving around with a boat. The lakes are surrounded by dense forests, home to bears, moose, and even lynx. Minnesota was also the first place where I saw a bald eagle. It was eating some animal in the middle of the road, a memory that I will treasure forever. The great outdoors in America come with its own set of rules, especially when hiking in Sioux native areas. Here, it's important to respect the land and follow the posted guidelines. You should also not only do this for your safety, but also out of cultural respect of the original owners of this land, the Sioux tribes. But as long as you follow these rules, there's a ton of fun stuff you can do. Skiing at Terry Peak during the winter was one of the funniest things I did. It was my first time skiing in my life, so I was terrible and always fell, but it definitely was worth it. Hiking was also extremely popular. Me and my friends went hiking all the time, even when it was cold. As long as it didn't rain or snow, nothing could stop us from hiking up a mountain and enjoying the beautiful views that the Black Hills have to offer. There was also a caving club at our school, which would often visit different caves and explore them. I thought about joining them, but javelin was just too much fun. But before you can do any outdoor activities, especially in the Black Hills, you should always let somebody know what you're doing. Just that in case you get lost, somebody can search for you. Also make sure to always check the weather. Wildfires and sudden bad weather can turn a hike into your own little horror movie. Talking about wildfires, when I first got to South Dakota, there were still bad forest fires happening in Canada. I never would have thought that this was possible, but the smoke actually reached Rapid City, and we were even advised to wear masks when going outside. Never thought that that would happen to me. So, from the dry cold of South Dakota to the humid lakes of Minnesota and the scorching trails of the Grand Canyon, my exchange year taught me a lot of things about adapting to new environments. I think nature in America is as diverse as its people, and it's something I will never forget. I hope you enjoyed my 5th episode, and thank you for tuning in to Living the American Dream, a year abroad. I'll see you next time for my last episode, when we're going to talk about how I set up this whole podcast project.